we're on and mic'd. Can you hear me? Oh, is that how I sound? Oh, gosh. Hello, everyone. How are you? Oh, that was wonderful. Everyone know what they're here to see tonight? Other than me? Yes? Do you know our panelists? Wonderful. Who have I got sat next to me? Let's hear some engagement. I was just explaining to David that he thinks that I'm really comfortable speaking on panels. I'm not. I actually have stage fright. It's a story. I was young, talent competition. I went to sing. They thought that I was shy. I wasn't. It wasn't my turn. They all started laughing, and I've never forgotten about it. But it's okay. So I require lots of engagement from the audience, which is fantastic for you because it means you all get the chance to speak and you'll walk away having truly engaged in tonight. So who do I have sat next to me tonight? Let's see if you actually know these individuals. Do you know who this man is? There's at least one man I know who knows. Who is this man? So what's your name?
My name's David Ogunmuyiwa.
Fantastic. And does anyone know who this is? Oh. Then you should.
Why do you have to say older? Huh?
Then, sir, you should definitely know his name. What's his man's name? What's your name, sir?
Nii Klotey Quaye.
Oh,
that's my name.
Fantastic. Where are you joining us from?
In what sense?
Business name? Give me
I see. Sorry, excuse me. It's been a long day.
How have you like to answer that question?
Do you know what? It's just been, yeah. This is what business is like. You come straight from the coalface.
Absolutely.
But I run a small practice called ArchitectureDoingPlaces.
Why do you introduce it as small? What's that about?
That's a really interesting question. People ask me that all the time.
Why have you introduced it small?
Maybe I'll elaborate on that during the conversation.
Okay. Someone make sure I remember to ask why he did that. Where are you joining us from?
Quaye Services Limited, big practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Quantity surveying and project management consultancy practice based in Streatham.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we are joined here tonight. This event has been put on by BPIC. We all know what that stands for, right? Okay, you're not going to do this. Black Professionals in Construction. This is in conjunction with the Mayor of London, who I know are currently running a program to support and encourage more young black males into construction. They currently make up less than, do you know the percentage? Close enough. So a very, very, very small percentage. And so the mayor is working across a few different industries, but one in particular that he has looked at is construction. So we have these fine gentlemen and panelists here joining me today to talk to you a little bit more about why they got into construction, what they do in their businesses, and any other questions I'm going to throw out to you later. And I might add a few in there myself because there's some things I want to know, particularly why you introduce your business as small, but I'm going to leave that till at least question 3 or 4. You know, I'm also looking at my phone, but only because the questions are here. So, or Instagram. You'll never know either way, so you'll have to trust me. So, if I start with you, sir, background, a little about yourself, your journey into construction. Do you want to let us know a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my first degree when I was at school, when I left school, was in construction management, actually. So I wasn't initially an architect. And then I went to, when I graduated from construction management, I went to work in housing management for local authorities around London. And then I retrained as an architect. So what I like to talk about is a kind of, A, it's a journey, and B, you don't necessarily have to start off where you want to end up. Right? So the important thing for me was just to kind of keep going and to be involved in it in all these different ways and almost accidentally learn all these skills that then put me in a position later down the line where I had all these intersecting skills just because of the journey I've been on that was actually more powerful than my peers at that time. So I've been to work in the Middle East, I've been to work in other parts of the world, and I was often working with people that were 10, 15 years older than me just because I had this weird intersection of jobs. So what started out as what felt like something that I was embarrassed about actually became a strength.
Fantastic. I'm going to come to you next, but I need to ask you, how did you know to do a construction management degree? Because I was not advised to do that by my parents. And how did you get away with that one, telling your parents how to do it? Let's ask
well,
questions.
it was about advice. So actually, I wanted to be an architect since I was 10 years old. And I was in sixth form college doing A-levels. I probably wasn't the most conscientious student, but I think also there wasn't a lot expected of me by my tutors. I remember going to a career tutor and saying, I want to be an architect. She goes, oh, well, that sounds a bit complicated. Why don't you go and do construction? So actually, it was somebody trying to kind of shift me off of the path of something that I wanted to do in the first place.
That steered you in the right direction.
Basically, yeah. But I wouldn't say they steered me in the right direction. I would say they steered me in a direction that suited them more than it suited me.
But on the path you were probably intended to be on there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, everything counts and you make it, you make it.
Do you wish you
worthwhile
had done architecture?
It's what I wanted to do, so at that time. Okay. But definitely, I made the most. I learned so much in construction. I learned so much in housing, and then when I came to architecture, I could bring a different point of view to that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Do you want the question again?
Please.
Okay. Had to unlock my phone. Background information. I'd like to know a little bit more about your journey into the construction industry.
Okay, so my journey started, similar to David, at college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to university, but I hadn't really spoken to many people about the options that were out there. The careers advisor said to me, why not accountancy? And that just sounded boring to me. I just thought, got no interest in being an accountant. But apparently I was good with numbers, okay with people as well. And he suggested quantity surveying. I hadn't heard of it. So I did a little bit of research and it sounded like something that I wanted to do. And to be honest, the thing that really got me into it was hearing that in Dubai they were paying people 100 grand. And I just thought...
I heard that one.
Yeah. So,
tax-free, right?
Yeah, all of that. I don't even know if I cared about the taxes at the time. I just saw the 100 and just So, 18 years old, I've got 100 grand in my mind. Did a degree in Manchester, commercial management and quantity surveying. And throughout that time, I got scooped up by a contractor called Balfour Beatty, who gave me work experience throughout my degree, did industrial placement, and it gave me a job when I graduated. And that was a really good insight into an industry that I had no experience in previously, particularly the culture. A lot of people had come from construction backgrounds. Their dads were bricklayers or plumbers and things like that, and they just wanted to push their children into a more professional role. So I felt like I was at a bit of a disadvantage, but quickly gained some confidence. I had a really good line manager who taught me the ropes, gave me a good basis. But similar to David, when he talked about this intersection of skills, I didn't realize until a couple of years into my career that I could be a consultant QS as opposed to a contractor or a builder's QS. And I made that switch over to a consultancy side, which was a lot more professional, or a lot more well-rounded.
A lot more money, right?
Do you know what? Not initially. Not initially. It's actually less money. Contractors pay very well up to a certain point. But then once you're a consultant, the way that you can start your own business, I think the sky's a bit more, the sky's the limit in that situation. And that being able to be on both sides of the fence, being on the builder side for and get my foundational skills there, then round out my experience going to a consultancy, becoming chartered, allowed me to also have a good blend of experience to make sure that I wasn't being tricked by builders when I was on site, but also speak the right language and translate what the builders were saying to my clients. And that blend of experience has led me here. Not in Dubai, as you can see.
Did you ever go to Dubai?
Only on holiday.
Still time. Why start your own business?
I would say that most people that want to be an architect don't ever say, I can't wait to grow up and be an architect and work for somebody else. That's not a thing that people say. So I've always had the idea that I would be kind of designing under my own steam and doing that. However, the older you get, you understand that's not as straightforward. I mean, I've got lots of friends who probably wanted to start their own business, but we were talking about this earlier, that steady check at the end of the month, that's a thing. That makes a lot of sense, and it counts, and it does a lot of good things. But I think that fundamentally, a lot of people are just entrepreneurial in that way. And I think whether you're selling flowers, whether you're selling chips, whether you're selling, professional construction services, you've got to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit in you. somewhere. So I think that's where it came from for me.
For me, I was raised on teachings of Marcus Garvey, Louis Farrakhan, and that I was an owner and I was a maker from a very young age. So even going into businesses, working for other people, I always saw myself as eventually being, in one of those top seats in any of the businesses that I was in. So I actually thought my route into ownership was going to be through an established company, work my way up, buy in and get some equity. But I was unfortunately made redundant in my last role. And I said to myself, am I going to go back and work for somebody else, or am I going to start my own business? And I made the decision to start my own business with that same confidence that I was taught from a young age. So yeah, it was always on my path, I would say.
What I really want to know is, what is it like starting up your own business in construction? What does it feel like? Because for me, that sounds really, I understand the benefits of it and I aspire to it. But what does that feel like, that point from which you leave that comfortable, the checks coming in, and even though you got made redundant, you'll be able to get a role somewhere else. What is that point at which you have that, what does that feel like?
I would say exciting, actually. Okay. I would say it's exciting from the point of view of you get to determine, it's that self-determination. It's a really powerful thing. And even if you don't have as much money coming in, you're in charge. People have to deal with you. People have to deal with you on a kind of particular basis.
But what about specifically in construction? Because I've been in the industry for about 5 years. And how many other people here have got experience in the industry? Anyone else here work in the industry? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So that confidence to have those conversations, to be in those certain rooms, particularly rooms that don't look like you.
Yes.
What did that feel? What was that like? From the position of a business owner.
Do you know what? I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see what Nii says on this as well, because I relished it. I always relished it because I never really saw spaces as that I couldn't be there. Good. I always wanted to be in those spaces and I was expected to be in those spaces. And if people couldn't cope with that, that was their issue. Now, it's easier saying that than done. And we've all, I'm sure most people in this room have had to deal with the issue of kind of what that really means in practice. But I think you've got to want to be in those spaces and understand that it's nerve-wracking. What I would say is any business owner from any background, it's always nerve-wracking. Everybody, there is always an element of fake it till you make it. Right? Yeah. So if that's going to happen anyway, you might as well just own it, is the way that I can say it. I hope that answers the question.
No, it does. And I ask that question in particular because, and for anyone that works with young people, I find that so many young people these days are really, really entrepreneurial. Yes. Whatever it is you hear that they want to do, right? Whether it's something, even the influence out there, they're really, really entrepreneurial, even more so than my generation or maybe even yours. And the construction, for the young people sometimes that I engage, they still don't see the construction industry as being a place for them. When we look at the initiative that the Mayor of London is embarking on with trying to engage more young black boys, what I always try to speak to young people about are the different ways that they can engage the industry. And we'd be wrong to assume that young people aren't prepared or ready to embark on the journey to have their own business, right? Because they do so in so many different ways, whether it's through apparel or this or that or whatever it is. So it's really understanding sort of, is anyone here that owns their own business? Would want to own their own business? Okay, this is relevant. So what would you say to a young black boy who wants to own his own business, maybe has loads of those different skills and is looking at construction industry?
Yeah, I'd say patience with themselves first and foremost. This is a technical industry. Depending on which area you want to own a business in, it's not something that you just pick up and start. There has to be some time where you put in and learn the craft in a particular way, like you would in any industry. But being a quantity surveyor, for example, which I am, that's not something that you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to start my own practice on. I don't think you're even allowed to do that, to be honest. So there's regulation there. But I think it's understanding the different routes, the different pathways that are in, and just be really willing to learn. Take that same confidence, take that same entrepreneurial spirit. And when you get to a point where you know you're good, look at how you can start practicing and flexing those entrepreneurial muscles, whether it be shadowing somebody who is a business owner, becoming a mentor, looking at what business you can do on the side safely, legally as well, and becoming a lot more accountable for the work that it is that you do. but the opportunities are there. And to be honest, that's part of the reason why I wanted to start my own practice, to provide a gateway for young people to come through and say, look, this is possible. There's somebody doing it, and just be someone that they could call upon and ask upon for information on how to make that happen.
Brilliant. What is the first thing you did when you decided to start your own business? First thing, you woke up, started my own business. What did you do?
Do you know what? I made a logo. Because then it was real. It was like it was something, you make a little logo in Photoshop or something, you print it out on your little dot matrix printer or whatever, and then you see it and it just feels real. And I remember I stuck it up on the wall and didn't have any work for years. But every day I came in and I saw it, and it's almost part of the answer that Nii gave as well. It's that you've got to keep the dream alive for me. If I was to spin your question around and say, what does a young person have to think about when they want to work for somebody else? People don't think that way. They know they have to get a job, and they know they have to work for somebody. So they go through this process, and you get go into all these kind of different avenues and pathways that give you work. That same opportunity is available to you if you want to set up your own business. Now, how big that business becomes, how successful it can be, how many opportunities you get, which both of us work very hard for, and I know you do as well, to kind of make sure that people get, is another matter. But just you need to have the dream. You need to kind of dream it to see it. You need to want to go towards it. You need to see people like you doing the same sort of thing. Because I think it's a thing about passion. It's a thing about persistence as much as anything else, because it's very easy to get knocked off the path. It is hard. Brilliant. It's a hard thing to do. It's not straightforward.
Wonderful segue into my next question. What were your barriers?
Money. Money is always a barrier, but I think I think that's kind of universal, that money is a barrier. I would say the biggest barrier is always a persistent barrier, is access to opportunity. And by that I mean, there is lots of work out there. We live in London, right, which is one of the richest cities on the planet. It was one of the richest cities in the history of mankind. There's plenty of opportunity out there. Many of you will remember a few years ago when there was lots of conversation about there's no magic money tree. And then over the last couple of years, you see that turns out there's a magic money tree somewhere. No one told us. Who knew? But what I mean by that is there is opportunity and there is money out there. But not only is there private money across London, there's lots of public money that is administered on all of our behalves, right? So everybody here, from whatever level of income you've got, has to pay towards council tax, which goes into a big pot for councils, and then they spend it with suppliers, people like us, or they're supposed to spend it with people like us. They don't spend it with people like us. I've said this on panels with you before. So there are opportunities out there because they're going to spend that money anyway. The decision about, the thing that remains is who they spend that money with. So there is always opportunity there, and a lot of the work that we try and do is to try and make sure that that access to that opportunity that's already happening is more broad, because this is London, right? You go out of the door, I think I don't know the results of the latest census, but the previous census before that, 47.3% of people self-selecting called themselves Black or minority ethnic, right? And that was just people self-selecting, not even people who don't choose to select that way. That was in 2011. So since then, I would argue that the proportion has gone up more. So if that is London and we all have the same education, we all go to schools, we all get qualifications, we all go, we don't all, but many people do. Yeah. There's these paths. Why is it that some people come out of that with opportunities and some people don't? And those are the conversations we have. But we don't see that as a kind of opportunity to say, well, we can't do it. We see that as an opportunity to say, that means that there's a massive potential pie out of there that everybody can benefit from for the benefit of everyone else.
Brilliant. What would you say some of your barriers in getting into the industry were?
As a business owner, or as in getting into construction?
Just in general, because before you became a business owner, you had to get into the industry.
Yeah. I'll say I was quite lucky in the sense that, getting onto my degree at the university I was at, University of Manchester, people came looking for surveyors. So I wouldn't say there was a barrier getting into the industry. I think there was a barrier in terms of establishing myself. And again, that comes back to, cultural differences that exist within construction generally. I think considering how much money there is in construction, I don't think we're the fastest moving in the forward direction. I don't think we're the most forward thinking when it comes to things like EDI and embracing people from, you know, different cultures. So that was the most difficult part, because by not necessarily fitting in, opportunities within the workplace weren't always available in the same way. Like I said, I was very lucky that I had a good line manager who saw my talent and pushed me forward, but these were things that had to almost be fought for rather than recognized by merit alone. So I think the biggest barrier really is understanding the culture. And like I said, many people in the company I worked in, their parents had been in construction prior and knew how to access or encourage their children to get into more professional roles rather than, you know, and obviously there's nothing wrong with this, but continuing being a bricklayer, a plumber, they say, look, son, you're gonna go and be a project manager, you're gonna go and be a quantity surveyor or whatever other discipline they wanted to go into. I'd say as a business owner, the barriers for me have been so far is one, actually just understanding how to run a business. What I find and where I find people have been successful, like, well, you know, largely successful, is where maybe they were very senior in a bigger practice, decided they want to go out by themselves, maybe one or two as a partnership, and they've already been exposed to how to run a business within that organization, and they've left and done their own thing. Now, we talk about racism within the industry. Those opportunities to learn how to run a business aren't always readily available for people that look like us. So I've left without really, you know, there were some aspects of it I understood, but now are only, you know, becoming more apparent as I'm getting into, you know, now my third year of business. So I think a barrier really in terms of running and owning a successful business is understanding an opportunity to understand how to run a business before you even go at it, you know, because those opportunities exist. And the second thing is, you know, kind of like what David alluded to is who you know, who's comfortable spending money with you, because it is a lot of money that people are spending, and no one really wants to say that they went against the grain. And by employing people that look like us, or appointing people that look like us, I should say, it is going against the grain. And so there is a fear, there's an uncertainty, there's a lack of understanding or respect for our own culture and the way that, you know, we work, and our own excellence that exists. So that networking, making sure that we get into the right circles is very, very key.
Fantastic. You mentioned something that was quite interesting that I want to throw out there as well. Fit, the right fit, cultural fit. Anyone else here corporate? How you feel about that, those cultural fit? Anyone come up against that cultural fit? Don't be afraid, you're amongst friends. Raise your hand, come on. Don't do the cultural fit thing to me tonight. Anyone else here come up against that cultural fit? Do you ever come against that?
Yeah, a lot, working for other people.
Talk to us, because I'm still trying to figure it out. Talk to me, and I've got a couple of EDI people in here. You're not engaging, what's going on? Cultural fit. I'm new to the industry. I say new, it's been 5 years. You've heard me make the joke before, so I won't do it again to you. But 5 years, and I'm very different. And I'm not talking about the way that I look. I'm very aware of the fact that personality-wise, I'm very, very different, very bubbly. I like to talk to everyone. Sometimes I forget they're the CEO. Sometimes I forget they're the cleaner. I just like to talk to people. And I'm not yet grasped that whole cultural fit thing yet. I'm not formed in line yet. And I feel like that is sometimes where my ceiling starts to appear, because I feel like the cultural fit thing really comes in and it starts to present a really defined ceiling for people who may be like myself, who are quite different in personality and character and all of those things. What was that like for you? And did any of that cultural fit influence you starting your own business?
Yeah, it did. And I think I was, because I've been really lucky in many ways in that I was almost oblivious to it, like kind of foolishly oblivious to it. How do you do that? It was an accident. I fell on my head as a baby. But I think to be serious about it, what I tried to do was because that's why I left working for other people. Because however hard I tried, you were always trying to kind of code switch and be this person that other people wanted you to be. And what I eventually realized from that was that there is a bar that you can never reach because it's always kind of receding. The closer you get to it, the further it goes away. Because it's deliberately a movable goalpost. That's the point. But I would make the distinction between kind of, and this is where entrepreneurial comes into it, between working in the corporate world and working for other people and working with kind of for yourself. And now I have my own employees, and I do expect, to be fair, a sort of cultural fit for me. I would say it's different, but it's for me. But why it's switched around was the bits of me that didn't fit into somebody else's organization. I turned into a superpower that made me feel like I could stand out and differentiate myself in the market space, because I'm not like everybody else. If you want that flavor, go over there.
Yeah.
Right. And this is hard to do. This is really easy to say, and it's big talk and everything, but it's the kind of values we try and align ourselves with, because actually we've had benefit from that. We end up on panels like this. We have opportunities. Been really, really lucky and very, very. This is linked to why I talk about small, because often we're in the room with.
I nearly forgot that.
Some enormous.
What's going on?
But just to clarify, often we're in the room with very enormous, very illustrious and prestigious practices who we're collaborating with, and some of my other peers don't have the opportunity to be in the room with those people, simply because I've differentiated myself. My practice is super diverse, deliberately. The RIBA is using our photo. We had to tell them off the other day because they were just using our practice photo for everything, like on all of their comms. They were like, look, there are some architects that look like this. We're like, yeah, make more of them. Because this is London, right? Why is there only us? Why is there only a picture of one of us when there's lots and lots of you? There should be more of us. There should be more pictures.
Maybe they hit their quota after you.
I'm sorry?
Maybe they hit their quota after that.
We can all draw our own conclusions. But what I would say is that they need to make more of us and quicker. And it should, and I don't say that as in that I want more competition. What I often say to people is, if I'm not a novelty when I go and bid for a job, I stand a better chance. If I'm a novelty and you can only, you think you're doing me a favor once every 5 years, that's not a business plan.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't
Exactly. I need to go into most rooms and say, 1 out of every 3 jobs, I've got a chance of winning.
Yeah.
Right? And that comes from normalization. If there's more of me going into rooms bidding for work, then I'm not a novelty, and you expect me to come to the door. So I think I talk about it as a pie, right? It's not that if I have a zero-sum game where if I have more of the pie, you have less of the pie.
Yeah.
If you allow me to bring my productive capacity, everybody does better. There's just more pie for everyone. Like it's better for everyone. That's how economies work.
Fantastic. What about yourself? Culture fit, did that impact you leaving and starting your own business? How did that show up and present for you when you were working in the corporate world?
The way I'm going to answer this is slightly different, because I feel like I've always felt like I have a responsibility, I have the power to affect change in any space that I'm in. As soon as I got into senior roles in any business I was in, I would make room for people that look like me to come through. And I think there's not enough of us being brave enough and doing that. And the reason why I say brave is because I'm sure most of you here, if you've been in a hiring position, there's this idea that if you employ somebody who looks like you, you're now responsible for that person, and you don't want that person to show you up, right? And I think that's an attitude that I've heard people, profess in so many different situations, and we have to overcome that, because we are the people in those senior positions that create a new culture. We allow people to come through and feel like, look, there's somebody who can at least safeguard my interests while I'm in this role. I'll give you an example. When you've got these young, Caucasian males that come out of university into workplaces, they'll look scruffy as hell, their shirts are out, their hair's all over the place, and they'll say, oh, it's just young Benji. It's all right, he'll grow out of it. He's just a little scruffy guy. But then now, if we say it's Shaquille, and I use this example because that's my nephew, who did work experience with me, and his jeans or his trousers are a bit low, they don't respect that culture. They don't understand that. They think he looks like a thug. They think he looks like a gangster. But they don't give that space for someone like Shaquille to grow up the same way that they would give Benji a chance to grow up. So we're talking about cultural fit. If we're in a position of power where we can influence that, we should be using that and flexing that muscle where we can to make that happen, because once we've established our excellence, we have to put people in a position where they're going to choose between how much they dislike me because I'm black and their bottom line. Which one's it going to be? Are you going to get rid of me or not allow me to flex my power because you don't like what I look like? Or are you going to keep making money in your business? And that's the choice that we need to put people. This is a choice that we need to force people to make. And part of the reason me starting my practice as well is so these are things that young people don't even have to think about when they come into work. Imagine how much brain time is being spent thinking about, do I fit in? Am I speaking the right way? Your job when you come in is to be a good quantity surveyor, to be a good project manager, and you don't need to think about anything else when you're in a space that I'm in. That's really what my focus is.
Thank you. It's a really, really important thing to mention because, particularly with my role, with going into schools and speaking to young people, it's so much the conversation of they don't see that this is being something for them. And even myself, joining as an adult, I didn't see this space as being somewhere for me. We only have to look at the news and the things that young people have faced up again. We've got the young girl and that really unfortunate incident. And it does create a fear around being in spaces that don't look like they're for you, for how you might be perceived, because those stereotypes can be quite traumatic, as with recent news. So what would you say, particularly given the nature of this campaign, to a young person that doesn't feel like a space is for them? Because it seems even to get to the stage to develop your own business, you had to have experience of the industry. You had to enter the industry. So if you're speaking to young people, to young boys or to young men or whoever, women, whoever, that don't have that experience, have someone like me who you wouldn't believe how difficult it is for me to fill an apprenticeship. It's really hard for me to fill an apprenticeship. I have apprenticeships all over London, and I can't fill my apprenticeships. And I can't fill my work placements. It's really, really hard. And the only thing I can factor it down to is young people not being able to see themselves in that space, because from outside of this world, I looked at it as there's just not enough. And there's a balance. There's balance between maybe not the right opportunities, but also between the environment that we're creating that lets people feel that they can be in it. So if you were speaking to people to say to them, what would you say to them for them to feel comfortable to enter this space and gain that experience when they're worried about the cultural fit, when they're worried about the stereotypes, when they're looking on the news and seeing what might happen to other young people when in spaces that don't understand them? What would you say to that future generation of construction professionals to encourage them to enter that space confidently?
I think there's an idea of knowing what it is that you want to get out of that space in the first place. Like David mentioned, having that vision in mind, and being unapologetic about what it is that you want to go for. Because that can be your home and beacon when things do get difficult, when you do find yourself having certain challenges that really is not fair for anybody to have to deal with, but have a very clear vision of what you want to achieve. And I think there's also this idea of having a level of dignity as well. We're not taught how to deal with racism with dignity at all. Your options are, run off crying or punch the person in the face, and that doesn't make you feel like that's a place that you even want to be in. So I think it's understanding that sense of self, and again, as David mentioned earlier, that this is your problem, it's not my problem. The fact that you feel and think or act this way is really your issue. So, clear vision, a sense of self and dignity, and understanding that there's a lot to learn in this industry as well, that the world does not move without construction. It doesn't move at all. So understand that you can gain a lot in terms of life experience, worldly experience, and some really amazing skills that can be transferred across any other industry, even if you choose to leave. Those are the things that I would encourage them to think about.
Yeah, I think I would echo that, and I would really echo the idea about what do you want to get out of it as well. I mean, it's a complex thing in one sense, so absolutely, it has to be a welcome environment. If it isn't, if it doesn't look like people aren't going to want to be kind of pulled towards it. At the end of the day, it is also a place of work, right? So there is a thing about kind of a professionalism that everybody needs to learn at some point. And they don't really teach that in schools, I don't think. I think that's a really hard, it's a really hard concept to get across, because the way it's often transferred from generation to generation is through those kind of social environments that aren't, like, there are loads of people who know how to be really polite. Often people, when they're really talking about professionalism, but they say, oh, I don't want somebody to kind of turn up and not be polite and stuff like that. I've got to tell you, every black child or young person that I've met in either education when I was lecturing in architecture or in practice has been exaggeratedly polite. They've been impeccable, right? People might pronounce things in the wrong way, people might not, they're like, because somebody doesn't hold their fork in a particular way does not is not a signal of their character in any way. But there is a kind of way in which we can have conversations about people about kind of how you're more professional, which is about timekeeping, for instance, but that's across generations, which is about being kind of attention to detail and being kind of careful about what you're doing and kind of making sure that your enthusiasm comes across, and you know, all these sorts of
Just
kind of
tools to arm someone with being how to confidently engage in different situations.
And I think talking about that in the way that Nii mentions, like, what do you want to get out of this? Because actually, the thing that you can get out of this is when I was talking about my background, that's what I got out of it. So all those other jobs that I did before I got to the job I wanted to do, I got so much experience from that by the time I got to the point I wanted to get to, I was almost pre-armed. I was almost kind of pre-armored. And I think I'm really kind of confident in young children that they actually do want a lot. They have ambition. And it's about connecting that, what they can get out of a particular role to something that they're ambitious about and something they want to get. You know, if they want to go off and start their own business, then if you come here, you can see how people talk to clients, right? This is how you talk to a client. This is how you answer the phone. This is how you deal with a stressful day. All these sorts of things that happen in a kind of routine sort of thing, so that when you're starting your business, this is how it works. I'm just tangential on that. When I hire people now, I ask them if they ever want to run their own business. And those are the people that I want to give a job to because they're ambitious. And I say, come and see how I do it. And even if I'm doing something wrong, come and see how not to do it, right? So that by the time you get to that stage, you'll learn, you'll have some frame of reference. I think, all that really counts for what people want from it in the first place.
Love it. My last question, what else does being in construction, running your own business, allow you to do?
For me, you know, once I again got into a senior role, it showed the real skills that I have outside of, you know, the number crunching. I you know, took a shine to management and coaching and developing young talent. There's a couple of people in the room, I think, who I've helped with, say, like their APC, which means that they get, you know, their chartered status. And it's allowed me to now spread that in my community, you know, through workshops that deal with things like professionalism, accountability, independence within the community. And these are skills that wouldn't necessarily have been brought out of me in the same way had I not been working in construction. And the people element is really, really key. And I'm really grateful to the industry for that.
Brilliant, thank you. What about yourself?
Mine's a bit more selfish, I'm afraid. But I think it's fulfillment. But I think there is something universal in that it's really good to be doing something that I enjoy doing and want to do, and that I get to self-determine myself about that. And that's, you know, speaking to young people, that's that kind of message I give them. Is, you know, when I meet people, I often ask them what job they do. And then my second question is, do you like it, or is this kind of what you do while you're thinking about the next thing you do? Because I always think people have broken down into those things. Lots of people want to do other things. And almost the conversation is then about encouraging them to do those other things they really want to do, not the thing that they end up doing. So, like, you can have that conversation with young people. It's like, what is it you feel you want to do? Or even, and lots of people don't know, but like, what is it you definitely don't want to do? Because that's also an important thing. But if you can kind of find your way through that jungle, you can find ways in which you're kind of more fulfilled. You're a happier person who's better for society, who's more, you know, it's a win-win-win. I think people that are more fulfilled, it's a win-win-win.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Mike's still on. Any questions from the audience? Have I covered everything? Oh, I did. Okay. Oh. We were being polite. Oh, we have. Thank you. Oh. I mean, there are three of us up here, but that's okay.
How do you bring that to life for them? Because circulate that for those that are already?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I've got two younger brothers. One's 21 and one's 17. And you talk about the things that they care about. You know, ask them what are they interested in, what appeals to them, you know, in a general sense. And then I teach them what it is that I know. You know, even if it's the money, how much money do you make? That will make their eyes light up. And then you tell them there's like a 17-year journey that it took me to get to a certain number. But the fact that they know it's possible, you know, I mentor quite a bit as well, and I invite people into spaces that I know that they'd enjoy and like being in, because, you know, once they touch it, once they see it, they can obtain it. And I think that's the route that I like to go down.
I mean, I would echo that. It's really about making it concrete and relevant to them. And in a sense, you're right, they're less reverential, and that's good in some ways, because, you know, that's how innovation works, right? People see things and say, yeah, I can do it better this way. And that's how the world moves forward. But it's also challenging. But if you're making it concrete and relevant to them in the way that you've just mentioned, absolutely, then they're making sense. They're seeing how to. My nephew is just about to start his GCSEs this summer, and he's asking me, you know, and I was just sitting down and going through kind of some papers with him, because I can do that now. You know, no one did that with me, so, you know, they get everything, honestly. But and I'm just kind of talking to him about how he can use a way of saying something to impress somebody, and his eyes lit up, because he wants to look good. That's his motivation at the moment. So the fact that he can go and use this piece of information to go and impress somebody is immediately relevant to him. Now I've got his undivided attention for like 5 minutes.
Anyone else? There's some other hands over there. Nee's brother. I'm guessing you're the 21-year-old one, yeah?
I'll take that. Thank you. Inspiring. I get this from, his name is John Rondeau. He talks about 25 laws to business, and with these characters, Napoleon Hill. What they always put out is it's about who you listen to. So I'm intrigued to know both my brothers. They're not my actual brothers as well.
It's all right. I was happy with you. I got it.
My brothers, who they listen to, who that kind of triggered them to then get onto this journey of entrepreneurship. And I've recently started working with clients who are leaving prison. And I visited last show Brixton Prison. Within that, they've got Bounce Back as their organisation, which are focusing on giving them the skills that can get them into work and entrepreneurship. And I was amazed to see that they've got actual made-up construction to paint, construction and plumbing. And so I just wanted to know if you are tapped into that, and how do you approach? Because he said 25% of our Black, Asian, ethnic minorities are within prison. 25% of the population in prison is made up of pain.
We forgive you.
So how do you tap into that, or have you done so, and what has that journey kind of been like? So who you listen to,
Yeah.
tapping into those that are kind of the forgotten part of our community.
You go first, sister.
Well, who I listen to is a complex question, I suppose, because I don't really think about it consciously. I'm a very intuitive person. I kind of do what makes sense in the moment, and I think a lot of people do, right? Like however we rationalize it afterwards, our gut told us to do it, and then we've thought about why we did it afterwards, I think. But a lot of people I listen to are peers. Everybody who's, like, I was talking to Nii earlier, and we were just having a conversation about how busy we were, and I was saying, yeah, you know what, we've been busy all year, but that's just kind of throughput. Like, our profitability hasn't gone up, we've just been really, really busy. We're just having all these conversations, but I didn't even know what that sort of conversation meant until a couple of years ago when I was talking to somebody else who was also running the practice, and I was like, oh, you know, tell me more. And you kind of hear these things from different people, but also from different reference sources. like all those books that you mentioned that we've all seen on shelves and stuff like that are great, but they're really abstract unless they're connected to something. There are, all sorts of, I don't know, movies, films, books.
Did you have a mentor?
Lots of mentors, but not specifically about my journey. I think that the thing that you find is because lots of Black entrepreneurs in construction are so rare, you almost have to make it up as you go along. So you've got mentors for different things is what I would say. But just to talk about, I haven't done much work with ex-prisoners, but I do know about Bounce Back, and they're an amazing organization. They do like a really kind of important and unsung thing that no one else is going to do if they weren't there doing it. So like those sorts of opportunities, I mean, what we try and do, and I talk a lot about this, so the way we hire people is we try and hire people that didn't get a chance somewhere else. Yeah. So the ethos of that, we are really open to. So we would always be open to employing the next offender at all, in any kind of shape that we can when we've got space in our company.
Who I listen to, it's funny because I've got a business coach, and he was getting on to me today about the fact that I should be reading more and listening to more entrepreneurial stories. But similar to what David was saying about the intuition, I'm more interested in the psychology of things. So I'll listen to like Brené Brown, Esther Perel, Jordan Peterson, because they talk more about the things that make you happy, the things that make you tick. And, they've mentioned about passion before and being able to have that self-fulfillment, that self-determination. The psychology is what really gets me going and gets me more inspired, because I know I'm moving in alignment with what it is I want for myself. So that's really what I listen to, even though I've been told I should listen to more business-focused stuff. Bounce Back, I'd not heard of it. Sounds like an amazing initiative, and it's something that I'll look into. And you asked about mentor. David's now my mentor. He didn't know it before now. But, I'll be tapping into him after this.
Here's the thing I would say about mentorship, because I've now got a lot of mentors, and the way I talk about it is it's an exchange of value, and I think that's the thing about the mentorship, because I'm always learning something. So when I'm talking to a 15-year-old, I'm teaching them something, but they're teaching me a lot of stuff as well. And I think that's that thing that you said about kind of, they're like, yeah. But actually, they're teaching me so much stuff from a different perspective that I can't access without them teaching me that. So it's always about an exchange of value. It's always about a conversation. I'm getting something from it. You're getting something from it. We both win.
I think mentorship is also really, really, I'm going to round this up soon. I think there's one more question. But really, really important, because there are certain things that myself, not a young Black man, but really wanted to know when joining. And one thing that I found, connecting to your question too, set off a bit of resentment when I first joined the industry, was not having any understanding of what to ask for when I joined. When I realized that I'd kind of messed myself up a bit, I didn't know how to recover from that feeling that I wasn't set up in the right way, not knowing I could have health insurance. No one offered it to me, but everyone had it, but me. And then I watched it happen to someone else. And I was like, this is what, and the person was getting paid even less than me. And I knew what the boundaries were, but no one corrected the person to say, the person that joined after me, who was a white male but was not from the industry, came in and gave a really low number. And I even saw the people come out of the interview and went, can you believe they asked for that? Or give him 10 more on top of that. But it was still 10 below the bottom of the boundary, and they were all right with that, So for myself, when I recognized I'd undersold myself because I wasn't familiar with the industry, there was a level of resentment that I couldn't recover from, And I had to leave to get the promotion and get the money that I needed. So in terms of the mentorship and speaking to young people and making it really real, it's also making sure we're all really prepared to know what is available to us, and we're prepared to have those conversations and to navigate the corporate world, how to positively navigate those interactions and conversations. I didn't know what to do when the girl started unpicking my dreadlocks. I had no idea what to do when I told them I had MS and she asked me to carry the computer up to the top of the 4th floor stairs. I didn't know. And so I kept developing this resentment, which then tied in with a stereotypical attitude, which then developed more resentment. When I think about our young people and young Black men and the level of stereotype that comes along with them, if they're not only geared up with the right fork and how to dress or whatever, but also how to, and it might not happen, I'm not trying to put that burden on people, but just in case, so you're well armed, how do you navigate these conversations? This is how you navigate. I do it with my son now, who's 19. Your contract, how do you look at your contract? Make sure you speak to me about it. You know, I'm not here to take over, but if it's not me, speak to someone about it. How to know what to ask for, how to know what your package looks like. This is what people are generally getting. Should it be a cut? All these things, because we may not, typically, if you haven't got a parent in the industry or a relative or someone else in the industry, know that the industry comes with these extra perks that are actually a bare minimum. You know, because I'd never been in the corporate world before. So I had no idea that actually, I think I could ask for a car allowance. I don't think I could ask for health insurance. I thought that was out of my reach. But making that real and making people well-armed and young people and young men well-armed to have those conversations makes it a bit more tangible. And it doesn't set them off on the path for a level of, you know, resentment and feeling comfortable or out of place in an industry that they belong in.
Sorry to jump in, but that goes back to what I was saying about the dignity as well. Absolutely. You don't feel like something's being taken from you unfairly, and you can handle those situations in a lot more calmer, self-respecting way, regardless of how anybody else around you is acting.
Because you just pull it from your toolbox, like, I've heard what might happen if someone was to approach this. I'm gonna pull from that little filing cabinet and I'm gonna respond, thank you. Not today. Do we have one last question?
I don't have a formal way of doing it. I'm just plugged into a lot of networks where young people are invited to, you know, there's a multicultural surveyors network for one, where there are people who are, you know, coming out of college or, you know, still in university. So they are in a group like that. You know, we have a WhatsApp group and there's been a couple of meetups and things like that. They're being exposed to people from all different roles and responsibilities in surveying. So just by being plugged in and looking at, you know, where talent might come from is my genuine way. I don't have any toolkits, to be truthful, but it is, again, the people aspect, speaking to people, understanding where that talent might be coming from. I've done, you know, speaking at schools. Just last week, I was speaking to somebody who's doing an assessment day for another organization. And by maintaining those type of relationships, as and when they come through, as the business grows, there might be an opportunity to employ that person at some point later on down the line. But at this stage, nothing formal, just talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, ours is formal because we were saying before, we do a lot of bids. We're very committed to this thing about kind of getting access to public work, which we will pay into. So we do a lot of public bids, and they often ask for a, like, what's your response to EDI, which is ironic because they're asking us and they often don't know. So LHC, who we had to embarrass nationally and in the national press and with the Mayor of London a couple of years ago, that made them reopen a framework, first time it's ever been done, were then kind of marking our EDI answer and gave us out of 20 marks, something like 15. I was like, I made you do this. How do I get 15 out of 20? Different story. But our formal process is basically Friday afternoons after 5 o'clock. And what I mean by that is we've taken the, because we interview people by portfolio because we're architects and we look at architectural graduates. So unless somebody is conspicuously unsuited, we will always give them an interview. Right, and we'll go through that. And we'll tell them beforehand that, you know, there's no necessarily a job beyond this, but if at some point in the future we grow and we need people, then we know you're out there, because that's part of it. But what we will definitely do is we'll give you an interview, we'll look at your portfolio, we'll talk to you about it, we'll just have a chat for like 20 minutes, half an hour, but you've had an interview. And apart from anything else, you can say you're having interviews, you can go on to the next person, and somebody's giving you a bit of kind of useful advice on what's working, what's not working in that thing. So that's how we kind of try and institute that and make it formal, but make it work to our size, because we're only small. You know, apart from the fact that we say we're small, we're only 4 people. So like we're
no
you know,
in
an no one knows that, but for us,
400 people.
It's true. But
you ever heard someone say, "I'm gonna speak to my manager"? You are the manager.
This is true, and I definitely tell them that. We're
it's
not,
above me.
We're not. we're not often competing in the kind of corporate world
Yeah.
against the Balfour BTs and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons why it's really important for people to understand our scale is just to see how well we're doing for the size
Yeah.
we are and the capacity we can do. We never try and overpromise. The
That's
worst thing is to overpromise and underdeliver. So we always
Absolutely.
make it clear to people, we can do this for you and we can provide this for you, but we're this size, you need to understand us. But we're also contributing to your journey
Yeah.
by this kind of exchange of value. But in that allows us to kind of bring people in and have conversations with young
Yeah.
people who are trying to get somewhere. And also, exactly as Nii was saying, just by seeing us, it's, you know, I can feel it when you're talking about it. For us, it's an act of faith. We want young people like us to see us, right? It's important because we were there once. We know what it's like. It's important for people to see us. It's important for them to come in and hear from us in a kind of supportive way, how well they're doing, how well this is looking, you know, who else they might think they might go and apply to, what else they're thinking about, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. Thank you both very, very, very much. That concludes our question section. Anyone here looking to join the industry? Doesn't matter what age you are, no? We've not changed your mind, that's okay. There's a networking, we'll get you in there. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, to David and to Nii. I think I've covered it.
Thank you to you. Smooth as usual.
All right, so let's network and let's finish off these drinks. Like I said, they're paid for. Let's do this.